Hello everybody, this is Bill White, Finance Director for Radnor Township, and you are watching a brief high-level presentation in conjunction with the Township's publishing of our 2015 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or as we call it, the CAFR. The CAFR is the culmination of months of work that involved the independent audit of the Township's financial figures and internal controls, as well as the conversion of the Township's cash basis activity to generally accepted accounting principles accrual-based activity. We do this project and publish this report annually. For 2015, on the cover, we are celebrating the new home of the Sports Legends of Delaware County Museum, which is now at the Township building. The agenda for the presentation will include an overview of fiscal health metrics as identified by CAFR in a special report to the board late in 2015. We'll also look at general fund expenditure trends, and the Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. Fiscal health metrics. Let's start with net position. Net position is an entity-wide full accrual representation on the Township's overall fiscal health. In essence, this is our bottom line. As you can see, we are presenting two different representations of net position. One is pre-GASB 68 and one is with GASB 68. So GASB 68 is a new requirement that governments include their full pension liability in their net position. 2015 is the first year that the Township is officially implementing GASB 68, which is why the net position number is dropping from roughly 4 million, a positive 4 million, to a negative 15 million. In our effort to prepare and be transparent with the new requirement, after working with our auditors and CAFR, Radnor began reporting what its net position would be under GASB 68 back in 2013 and 14. We included pro forma statement of net positions disclosures in the footnotes in each of those years. That's why we could still show a 3-year performance trend under the new reporting requirement. As the graph indicates, net position has been steadily increasing since 2010 as a result of strong revenues, which allowed the Township to invest into capital, pension, and OPEB. Those investments have either increased assets or helped to begin offsetting some of our larger liabilities. At the same time, the Township has increased fund balance requirements, all of which is adding to improved net position. Specific to 2015, the Township's net position improved by 1.98 million or 11% over 2014. Details of the increase can be found on the Statement of Activities and the Statement of Net Position. Next, we'll look at general fund balance. General fund balance has grown sharply since its 2009 low as a result of better fund balance policies, strong revenues, and controlled spending. Note that the decline in fund balance from 2013 to 2014 was the planned spend down of the one-time $8 million tax settlement. Most of those funds went to fund pension and OPEB obligations. Again, as discussed on the previous slide, those reinvestments were significant towards improving net position. For 2015, the general fund balance increased by $273,000 or 2%. The general fund balance is made up of several categories, as shown in the donut graph to the right. These categories are defined by generally accepted accounting principles and include non-spendable, committed, and assigned categories. All of these have specific regulations tied to them and therefore are not available for discretionary spending. You can see footnote 1 in the CAFR for more details. The last category of fund balance is unassigned. For Radnor, there are 3 levels of unassigned fund balance, which are dictated by our fund balance policy under Chapter 4410 of the Municipal Code. We have 15% of expenditure requirement. And then, on top of that, since our Act 511 revenues exceed the threshold, we have an added 10% of expenditure fund balance stabilization requirement, which leaves the last category of unassigned and other, highlighted in yellow. This amount of roughly $2.7 million is available to be reinvested subject to Chapter 4411 of the Township Code. Please note that for this year, 1 million of the 2.7 will be transferred to the Park Improvement Subfund for Clem McCrone Park as part of the overall park improvement bond financing. The last metric is the legal debt margin. The legal debt margin provides the level of outstanding debt as a ratio to the township's revenues. The legal debt margin is a state-mandated calculation, and it is included as Schedule 15 in the back of the CAFR. The legal calculation excludes electoral debt since voted bonds have been dedicated and voted millage is there to pay for it. CARFAC and the administration agreed last November while doing the special report that showing the legal debt margin with the full debt load was appropriate as a matter of full disclosure. And that is represented by the light gray line on the graph. As you can see by the graph, the township's legal debt margin continues to decline, which means that outstanding debt is decreasing compared to township revenues, which are increasing. Please note that in 2015, only the library portion of the new borrowing was included, and that for 2016, the legal debt margin will also include the amounts for the park and trail improvements. But in 2015, the legal debt margin declined by 162 points, or 1.62 percentage points. And then real quickly, the jump in the full debt load calculation in 2014 represents the borrowing for the Ardrossan voted open space. Jumping over to the general fund expenditure discussion. The next 3 slides will break down the general fund's audited expenditures into 6 categories. The first 2 include payroll and non-payroll operating expenses. Payroll expenses have grown by roughly 3% per year since 2011 as a result of cost of living increases for staff, as well as replacing some long-term vacated police officer positions, which brought the uniformed staff from 36 officers in 2012 up to 40 at the end of 2015. Please note that the budget includes funding for 44 the 2016 budget includes funding for 44 uniformed officers. 3 of those positions were filled in January, with 1 still vacant. Non-payroll operating expenses have grown by 8% per year since 2010. And looking through the departments, the annual increases are the result of many cost of doing business increases, ranging from utilities to deer calling to engineering for township projects to police contracted services to community development contracted services, Finances Act 511 administrative expenses, increased community contributions, as well as increases in fire company contributions and more. The next 2 categories include pension and OPEB expenses and other employee benefit expenses. The pension and OPEB cost increases over the past 4 years have been well documented and, as discussed earlier, are helping to improve the overall net position of the township. We still have a long way to go, but the improvements in the additional funding are making real and are making a dent in the overall liability. But as you can see by the graph, those increases, the annual expense for those cost categories are increasing or have increased dramatically. Next, looking at the other employee benefit expenses, excluding pension and OPEB, this is made up primarily of healthcare. We see that the annual cost has remained relatively constant over the past 4 years. This is the result of lower healthcare renewal costs, some reduced benefits for non-union and supervisory staff, and due to the fact that many of the other benefits have little fluctuation year over year. Finally, the last 2 categories include debt transfers from the general fund and the total general fund expenditures. which is the sum of the other 5 categories. Starting with debt service, you can see that debt service in the general fund has been gradually declining since its peak in 2007. The slight increase in 2015 represents planned expenses out of the township's overall amortization schedule. Also note that in 2009, the township did not transfer funds from the general fund for debt service. Instead, it deposited real estate taxes directly into the bond retirement fund to pay for those. That's why the 2009 line appears to be zero. The debt service was paid directly out of another fund. And then also note, the general fund debt service amounts represent only the general fund's portion of debt service. There are bonds that are paid for out of the sanitary sewer fund as well as the park and open space fund that are not shown on that graph. Finally, the general fund total expenses. As you can see, from 2010 up to 2015, the increases have grown, and as touched on, has been primarily the result of the pension and additional pension and OPEB funding, as well as the added police positions and increases in operating expenses. For 2015, expenses did drop by 4% from 2014. Finally, let's touch quickly on the GFOA's Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. The certificate, as noted by the GFOA, or Government Finance Officers Association, is the highest form of recognition in the area of financial reporting for governments. Its achievement should not be undersold. The first requirement to receive this certificate is having a clean audit opinion from independent auditors, which the Township has again received for 2015. The Township last received this award with our 2014 CAFR, which marked the 4th straight year that the Township has received this recognition. Our 2015 CAFR will again be submitted for consideration, and we are confident that it will be rewarded as well. However, GFOA holds the final say on that matter. In wrapping up, on behalf of Bob Tate, our Assistant Finance Director and HR Manager, who oversees this important project, we'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners for your leadership, to CAFR for their continued excellence and service to the community, to our Township Manager, our departments, and especially to the Finance Department staff for their hard work, which is the true source of the financial and internal control improvements over the last few years. Thank you, everyone, and be sure to check out the CAFR on the Township's website. Call or email if you have any questions. Thank you.